First at 9.
Hello there, very good evening and welcome to your Primetime News Bulletin. I'm Shane Silva.
And I'm Samadhi Gunasekar.
A team of UN chemical weapons experts came under sniper fire today as they traveled to a suburb of Damascus in Syria, the scene of the recent alleged chemical weapons attack that claimed hundreds of lives.
The News First International Desk has been following the crisis in Syria closely and will have a comprehensive report for us later on in the news. But first, a look at tonight's headlines.
The headlines on News First at 9.
Navneethan Pillai heads to Jaffna following several meetings in Colombo. Minister of Health affirms that no traces of BCD or the botulinum bacteria were found in 12 samples of imported dairy products. Deputy Mayor of Nuwara turns himself over to court in connection with child abuse charges. Sri Lanka no longer requests or requires aid, a statement from the governor of the central bank.
News First at 9.
The visiting UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Navneethan Pillai, left for Jaffna earlier today.
She hopes to meet with several officials in the northern province tomorrow, including the governor.
Before departing to Jaffna today, Navneethan Pillai had a number of high-profile meetings in Colombo.
UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Navneethan Pillai visited the Supreme Court complex this morning, where she held discussions with the Chief Justice. Our reporter says that subsequently Pillai called on the Attorney General at the AG's department. Later in the morning, Pillai met with Minister of Justice Rauf Hakim. Convening a media briefing following the meeting with the UN Human Rights Commissioner, Minister Hakim said that attention was drawn towards a number of factors during their discussions. I informed her on the post-war reconciliation process and the new steps that we have taken with regard to our criminal laws and judicial processes. She drew attention towards recent incidents and problems pertaining to law and order and problems between the army and the police. As the leader of a party representing the Muslim people, she asked me about my perception of recent incidents of violence at mosques. She spoke about the newly established ministry. She concluded that it must be brought under the Justice Ministry or another suitable ministry. We have given her the opportunity to visit this country and to freely and independently travel anywhere in the country and meet anyone she wants. This shows that we have nothing to hide. We hope that her perception will change following this visit.
මේ සංචාරයෙන් පසුව එතුමියගේ ආකල්පය වෙනස් වෙයි කියලා අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
Subsequently, Navneethan Pillai met with the National Languages and Social Integration Minister Vasudeva Nanayakkara at his ministry. Speaking at a media briefing convened following the meeting, Minister Nanayakkara noted that a report was submitted to the UN Human Rights Commissioner on steps that have been taken to bring forth national unity in the country. She asked whether the powers granted through the 13th Amendment to the Constitution would be taken back in some way. I told her that at present the Select Committee does not have such an idea. Following the establishment of the Northern Provincial Council and the experience we garner from that, we will be able to arrive at a conclusion in the Select Committee on what kind of powers are needed for provincial councils. If Tamil language signboards in the north have been removed and replaced with signboards in Sinhalese only, then that is wrong. I wrote to the Army Commander about this on a prior occasion, and officers from the Army intervened and looked into it. They do not have the powers, so we asked them to give instructions. The Army Commander wrote back to me saying that instructions had been issued to them regarding the use of languages on signboards and that they had been instructed not to intervene. I informed the High Commissioner of this as well. Meanwhile, a group including Buddhist monks staged a protest in Colombo today against the visit of the UN Human Rights Commissioner. A tense situation arose when the group attempted to march towards the UN compound in Colombo. From the people who invited Navanithan Pillai to the people who are meeting with her, they all have to be held to account for the harm that will be caused to this country. It will not be surprising if she stands against us at the next session of the Human Rights Council. We invited her to come to Sri Lanka 2 years ago. We invited her to come see with her own eyes, to listen with her own ears and understand the true situation. We have no hatred for the United Nations. She must understand this. Do not spread communalism. This is a lesson that Navanithan Pillai must learn from this country.
Navanithan Pillai meteniya meraten ugata yutu paadamaක් ඒක. මෙතනේනි එන්න තල් රුප්පාවට එන්න මල් පිපිදයි බලන්න එන්න මල් පිපිදයි බලන්න Navanithan Pillai මෙතනේනි.
Political representatives have expressed differing views on UN Human Rights Commissioner Navi Pillai's visit to Sri Lanka.
Let's take a look at some of these views.
When someone of the caliber of a human rights commissioner visits a country, they must act and behave impartially. She is preparing to submit a report in September, and if this report is not impartial, then I will be there to speak against it. I will say that the report she has submitted is wrong. I have told you this thus far, and now in the end I will say that come September I will be going there, and I must have the opportunity to once again make this statement on behalf of our government. Once again at this election, they are asking us to mark a cross next to the betel leaf to show opposition to Navanithan Pillai. It is the same drama that the government has played out at every election. They said this during the presidential election, during the general election and the local government elections. They said the same thing at the provincial council elections. Now for the Northwestern Provincial Council election, they are saying the same thing. Sit and watch the television channels today and you will see. The people of this country must understand this. Spare a thought and wonder what would have happened if Mahinda Rajapaksa did not win back then. He managed to win by 100,000 votes. Imagine if Wickremesinghe won, the country would not be in this position. Madam Navanithan Pillai is not coming here to ask what happened to the tiger. Look at how history was changed in one election. Now the madams are coming here to see what is going on. There weren't any madams back then. They did not come here then. They used to come in secret. Now this madam is traveling to the north and is meeting with everybody. At times even when rogues break into a house, some of our people say they are going to tell Madam Pillai. Navanithan Pillai arrived in Sri Lanka today with a plan. Following the conclusion of the crisis in Sudan, Navanithan Pillai compiled a report for the UN Human Rights Council against the government of Sudan after taking dollars from the terrorist organization there, a non-government organization. Today she has come to Sri Lanka. She did not come here to look into the situation in Sri Lanka and compile a report. She has already compiled the report. And later she will say that she compiled the report.
You are watching your primetime news bulletin. Let's now take a look at the newspaper cartoon of the day.
Residents of Valley area engaged in a protest demanding clean drinking water. Unrest in Grand Pass, Colombo. Break-in at journalist Mandana Ismail Abe Wickrama's residence. Navanithan Pillai begins her tour of Sri Lanka. A new incident each week. Will issues that require attention be swept under the carpet due to the occurrence of new incidents?
The Ministry of Health says that it has been affirmed that chemical compound DCD and the botulinum bacteria is not present in samples of 12 batches of milk powder.
Issuing a communique, the ministry notes that this was confirmed by tests carried out by the Industrial Technology Institute and the Medical Research Institute.
The samples were referred to the Industrial Technology Institute and the Medical Research Institute on instructions issued to the Director General of Health Services by the Cabinet Subcommittee, which was appointed following the recent incidents surrounding imported milk powder products. Issuing a communique, the Ministry of Health notes that 12 samples of milk powder were sent to the Industrial Technology Institute to test for the presence of dicyanidamide or DCD, while a further 12 samples were dispatched to the Medical Research Institute to test for the presence of botulinum bacteria. The Ministry of Health has confirmed that batches of milk powder imported by the Maliban, Fonterra and LifeServe companies, which belong to the samples that were submitted for test, do not contain DCD. The ministry further noted that no traces of Clostridium botulinum were found in 8 samples of infant formula containing whey protein that were also subject to analysis. The communique adds that approval was also granted for the use of local milk with whey protein in Milo products. As the Nestle company had proven that the whey powder used in Milo products is sourced from France, approval has also been granted for the storage, distribution and sale of these products.
President Mahinda Rajapaksa met with his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko yesterday.
The presidential spokesperson and international media units noted that bilateral discussions between the two heads of state had been centered on strengthening bilateral ties in a number of areas.
A special guard of honor was accorded to President Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Belarusian Presidential Palace. Thereafter, a bilateral discussion was held between the two heads of state. President Mahinda Rajapaksa stressed that no country would be able to maintain development without peace or vice versa. Meanwhile, President Alexander Lukashenko had commended the achievements of the Sri Lankan government following the defeat of terrorism. Thereafter, discussions between the Sri Lankan and Belarusian delegations began at the Presidential Palace. During the discussions, President Lukashenko had noted that Belarus is prepared to support Sri Lanka in a number of spheres. President Rajapaksa had condemned the efforts taken by institutions such as the United Nations Human Rights Council to exert undue pressure on countries such as Sri Lanka and Belarus in order to fulfill the needs of various parties. During the meeting, President Mahinda Rajapaksa had extended an invitation to the Belarusian president to visit Sri Lanka and also to dispatch a delegation to the Commonwealth Business Forum, which is to be held on the sidelines of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting.
News First at 9.
Now on to today's Words of Wisdom segment, we take a look at the thoughts of former U.S. President Abraham Lincoln on the subject of right and duty.
Let us have faith that right makes might, and in that faith, let us to the end dare to do our duty as we understand it. Abraham Lincoln, former U.S. President.